extremely fortunate to be joined by these two wonderful people on stage here. And we're going to be talking about stories from a multi-generational family cannabis farm. Before we get started, I'm actually just going to read a little bio about Mendocino Family Farm. So Mendocino Family Farm is a sprawling 200-acre estate located on the headwaters of the Eel River in Mendocino County. 10,000 sun-drenched square feet are dedicated to cultivating the handcrafted, high THC strains and terpene profiles the farm is known for. Phil Cruz, who heads the farm with his wife Sue and daughters Melissa and Paula, has practiced sustainable and regenerative farming practices for 40-plus years, including mulching, no-till, soil building, cover cropping, and companion planting. Melissa graduated from UC Davis with her undergraduate degree in wildlife conservation, and now she's at Oregon State University getting her master's in wildlife conservation. So truly two amazing individuals here. We're lucky to have them in the building. To get started, Phil, why don't you tell us a bit about where and how you started working as a cannabis farmer?
All right, well, welcome to the California State Fair. My name's Phil Cruz. I'm the owner of Mendocino Family Farm. We started this farm actually 23 years ago. And my background started in cannabis back in the 70s. I was fortunate to have a brother-in-law that was more like a father to me. So this is pretty much our third generation in cannabis farming. He was way above his time in cannabis. He taught me about sinsemilla and how to take care of the plant organically, regeneratively, and sustainably. And in the late 70s, my mom moved to Humboldt County, and going up there and cannabis picked me to be part of this. Everything came easy to get into the cannabis, and then, when you start actually doing it, you realize that you're in for a lot of work. But it's become a passion to me. I mean, cannabis has been part of my life every day since I was 13 years old, and it's just been a really wonderful life.
Thank you for that. Melissa, can you tell us a bit about your role on the farm?
So like you said, I got my degree in wildlife conservation, and initially I wasn't sure if that was something I could use on the farm, but luckily I was able to find some ways to help give some advice on how to protect the wildlife there and how to utilize the wildlife and to help with pests and things like that. So one of the biggest things I did with a colleague of mine was write the CEQA for my farm, which is like the environmental impact report. And we went out there, we did amphibian surveys, we did nesting bird surveys, and it was really exciting to do that on my property and kind of provide that type of information for my family.
Awesome. So I want to take things back a little bit to your childhood. And I'm wondering, Melissa, can you tell us, what was unique about your childhood, especially maybe compared to peers of yours whose parents were not cannabis farmers?
Yeah, definitely. It was such a unique way to grow up, and I'm so grateful for it. Some of my memories, especially growing up in a town that's very surrounded by cannabis, once you find those friends who also their parents grew, it was like a very exciting, those are my buddies, you guys can come over in the fall when things are really smelly, and that was a really big memory of mine to get excited about. So it was really interesting, and also super difficult to always have to kind of keep it a secret for some people. Mm-hmm. You weren't always sure who you could trust before it became legal, and that was also a really big change for me when it became legal. I felt like, hey, I can be confident and proud about what my parents can do, and that's really exciting.
Absolutely. And so before I go back to you, Phil, we were talking a little bit before this. Could you share that story that you were talking about when the police came to your school in middle school and what they asked you about?
Yeah, so I have a vivid memory of, I must have been it was early middle school, and the police show up trying to give us an education on cannabis, but really what they did was show us what it looked like and said, this is bad, this is a drug, don't do this. and me and my friends who also parents were growing, we're just rolling our eyes at them. Like, we know they're wrong. We know it's safe. We know it's good. We're not out there smoking it every day. We weren't stoner kids. We were very much exposed in a very positive light. So yeah, it was just rolling our eyes at the police at that moment.
And then, so Phil, for you, what was it like raising kids when you were underground?
Well, we're from Lake Tahoe, and a
Hold the mic
lot
a
of my
little
friends up there, they were really cautious about having cannabis around their kids. They always hid it from their kids. We came to their house and we had to go out in the garage or in the backyard. We felt like that was a big mistake. We felt like if we raised our kids to normalize cannabis with our kids, then they wouldn't be so excited to get into smoking cannabis when they're kids. Now we know, scientists have found out that kids with developing brains, until you're 25 years old, cannabis has negative effects on children. So, but we always knew, we didn't want to influence our kids to smoke cannabis, but we knew we didn't want to hide it from them either. And come to find out, it's later in life, my friends in Tahoe, all their kids were alcoholic stoners. My kids went straight to college. Just were totally really good citizens, and because we normalized it to them. And when you try to hide something from a kids, they want to do just the opposite of what you're doing. So any parent that has any young kids, I really suggest is sit down, especially a young teenager, and just explain to them that, wait until after your brain's developed, and then you can enjoy cannabis. Cannabis will do positive effects after your brain's developed. So, I would just be upfront with kids if you're parents, instead of trying to hide it. I would hide the alcohol before I'd hide the cannabis from my kids.
That's a great point. So also before this, Melissa, we were talking about some of the perceptions, about growing cannabis as a profession, namely that it's dangerous and can be violent. What are some of the values that your family has, both as a family and as a farm, as a business, that you think help to counter these perceptions?
Yeah, like we were talking earlier. I mean, I remember watching movies about cannabis growers, and they always had guns, and it was always this awful looking experience. And I'm sure that is out there as well. But for my farm and the way I grew up, my parents are so giving and so trusting, and we would invite people who would come work for us. They would house them in a really comfortable way. We feed them 3 meals a day, make sure they're good to go. And growing up around that really developed who I am now. I'm very, I love trusting. I'm very trusting right away, which, could be positive, could be negative, depending on how you look at that. But I think it's so good to have grown up in this place where it's just so much giving up until this moment. I think it's beautiful and just so unique to our farm.
That's beautiful. I agree. All right. So Phil, you mentioned to me that sometimes you refer to the farm as Paradise Prison. Now, can you talk a little bit about that dichotomy and why the farm can feel both like paradise and prison?
Well, yeah. Well, for one, the name Mendocino Family Farm is exactly what it is. It's just our family running this farm. We have no employees. If we have employees, we have to grow more, and everything has to go faster, so our quality of cannabis goes downhill. I've always been known since 1981 to grow some of the best, strongest cannabis that people have ever seen. So yeah, the Paradise Prison comes from my wife and I. There's always something that has to be done. You can't just leave the farm with no one there. And it's truly paradise to have this lifestyle. We have this 200 acres. It's a wildlife refuge, the whole subdivision. So, we're waking up to birds and the bees and the deer and just all the wildlife comes through our property, and it's paradise. There's no stress involved at all. Other than your daily chores that sometimes you have issues, but cannabis has really helped me with stress. I've always been a really high, intense, stressful kind of person. And now I'm I'm older now too, that helps, but it's just got me so level-headed that everything just every day, it just seems like that day is the most important day of your life because you're still vertical and you're enjoying the good life, So yeah, it's paradise, but it also is, there's a lot of responsibility. So even both of us going to the grocery store in town, especially now, we're worried about forest fires. And so someone always has to be at the farm, and we're off the grid as well. So you can't just, have your neighbor come over and stay at the farm. There's a lot that goes along with, we're our only electric company, we're our water company. There's no one you can call for any of your utilities if something goes wrong. So yeah, so it's kind of funny that that's what we named it, Paradise Prison.
It sounds.
My friends in Lake Tahoe, they call our farm Fillets. My name's Phil. Willits is 12 miles south, and so they feel like this is our own little thing. So yeah, Willits.
It's your own little city.
Fillets is 12 miles north of Willits.
Are you writing that down? That's awesome. Phil, could you also talk a bit about, and Melissa too, from your memories, how things changed for you guys, post legalization?
Oh man, for since 1981. We've always felt like this plant should be legal. So we always push the limit. My mentor in this told me, like, if the cops come, the next day, get out there, plant more. Let's give them work. If they want to pick plants, let's give them work. We need to get this plant legal. Go for it. Well, guess what happens when you do that? You go to jail. So I went to jail. They were trying to get me in federal prison, and I just got really lucky. A friend had a lot of money, got a good lawyer, and I was able to get a plea down to a jail sentence for a year and 5 years probation.
What year was that?
That was in 1985, and I was on probation until 1990.
All right, so this is pre Melissa and Paula.
Yeah, the thing about Melissa and Paula coming, when something good comes out of something bad. My wife and I were trying to have kids for 2 years, and she wasn't getting pregnant. After I got arrested, I was being tested on a weekly basis, and so both of us quit smoking cannabis for 5 years, and right away she got pregnant. She got pregnant 3 times. Unfortunately, the first one was a miscarriage, but we have these 2 beautiful kids. It gets me kind of welled up, but we raised some citizens in this world where it's really rare to have people like these 2 in our life. They're both environmentalists. They care about the world. They've taught their parents how to care more about the world. And so now we have this total sustainable farm that helps with all the wildlife. It helps. We don't hurt nothing. We build our soil. We don't feed our plants. We feed our soil. So that's just one thing. It's like really in my heart deep that I got these 2 beautiful kids out of being arrested and having to, plus I became a really good carpenter. So it really helped a lot. And not to mention no more looking over your shoulder. Like on a daily basis, you were worried, like, is this guy a cop? Am I going to go to jail? What's going to happen? Now, sure, the industry, we're struggling with prices, a lot of corporate cannabis is trying to take us small farmers out, but I'm a really stubborn person, and it's never going to happen. Even if we can't sell this, I'll give it to you folks. I'll be giving it away. I'd give it away. I'd much rather give it away than sell it. People never forget a gift, so I really feel like the world needs this.
Yeah.
And if I have to give it away, I'll still be in this business.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too about like the legalization. The positives, of course, were being able to talk about it openly and be proud of what we're doing. Be at the state fair is so huge for us. It's so exciting. But some of the negatives, they expect so much from us small farmers, and they're putting these requirements that they would normally put on like a big industry, like maybe alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these older folks like don't know how to do all of the technology side of it and all the metric. It's a lot of technical work and a lot of jargon that we're trying to figure it out as the county's figuring it out. And it's just so unfair how much money they expect us to be able to put out in this market. And that's been like the most frustrating part of this, is the expectations from the state and the county from such a small farm.
Absolutely. I think you'd expect and hope that there would be some nuance and some differentiation based on, the resources and the size of the farm. And so Phil, what do you think that the state can do at either a policy level or, just a human caring level to help the small craft farmer?
Well, the biggest issue with us right now is the way that distribution is formatted. I'm not allowed to deliver my products. Once we harvest our products and have it tested, then that you have to bring it to a distributor. Now it's out of your control what happens to your cannabis. I have no power. We don't have money to have a lawyer sue a distributor. So once it gets to the distributor's hands, it's no longer mine. So they have all the power. So if they take your product and deliver it and someone has an issue, with the product in the back of a van, we've had problems with someone, taking it, not making it all the way to delivery and letting the van sit in 110 degrees. And by the time they got it to the dispensary, it was just about destroyed. And the thing about that is it's hard enough to get these connections with dispensaries. So when it's out of your control and a distributor has to handle that, then you're going to have this kind of problem, and I'm going to lose clients. If they would allow small farmers, if there was a license, there's not even a license out there unless I want to get a full-on distribution micro license to distribute to dispensaries. It's a very expensive process, but I really feel like if the state would work with us and let us do our own packaging and delivering straight to the stores, then our sun-grown cannabis, for one, is going to be a way higher quality product because it's fresh and directly, immediately, but then no mistakes. Anytime the control is taken out of your hands in your business and you depend on someone else for your business, something's going to go wrong. So the more control, the better off I am. And I'm an on-schedule, picky guy about how we do everything in our farm. Our farm is a truly handcrafted farm. That means we cold cure our cannabis from when it picks. We hand trim it and then package it. It takes till January before it's even ready to go. A big cannabis company, they have so much money invested into this that they need to get it dry as fast as possible. And they put it in machines to trim it, and then they try to get to market as fast as possible. So, it's like any product. Anything that's handcrafted, obviously it better be the best in the world. If it's not, then you better leave it up to professionals and get out of the business.
Thank you for that. I think that's a good reminder for everybody out there. And anytime you see cannabis legislation on any docket, just to pay attention, because I think even if your perception that it doesn't impact you maybe immediately as a consumer, it's like what impacts these guys does impact us at the consumer level ultimately. And I'll tell you, the sun-grown flower that folks like you are making is truly the best product that anyone can find and consume. So we have to do what we can to preserve, your guys' livelihoods, really. So thank you again for, joining us today. I think we have time with a few more questions. I want to talk a little bit about, the state fair win for you guys last year and the difference maybe that made, as for you guys as a family. And you could talk a little bit about, tell people where they can find your flower now that you have this new relationship with colas.
Well, last year, if you don't know, our industry was at its lowest point in 40 some years. Prices were just about free. It might as well have been. It was ridiculous how cheap, it went down. So, going from that to where we are now, at that lowest point, we won the state fair, gold medal for the highest THC in California. It still holds the record for the outdoor. It was like a godsend for us. We were just about ready to close doors. My wife and I spent all our retirement funds to keep this business going. And then we won the state fair. We came over to the state fair. I met Caitlin and James. These guys, man, they treat us like family from the day we met them. And I tell you, it's just like everything from that was just a boost. Just everything. It just like all of a sudden we went skyrocket. Everybody in California was like, who's this small family farm with this really, really fantastic cannabis? And once the word got out, like people were calling me. I was no longer in my office, calling dispensaries, begging them to put me in their stores. Now I interview dispensaries and see if I want to be in your store. Because what I'm seeing is a lot of dispensaries are buying indoor corporate cannabis and don't really care about the small farmer. So if I go in there and I see that they're not lobbying for us at all, then I'm not really interested in being part of you. Because the way we've been treated by them, it's like they act like they're doing us a favor. They're getting in their store. Now I feel like it's time to turn it around. I've been in this game for a long time. I've never been a salesperson. My cannabis has always sold itself. Now I have to be this guy that goes in and goes, please, please give me a chance. And I tell you, when you go into a store, most all the stores are young people. And the young people do discriminate against old folks. So an old guy walking in by himself, I hardly ever even get to talk to a buyer. So those connections only get made if you have someone that you know in that business. I never get a connection when I just walk into the store. They don't expect for this old man to be able to have anything that they're interested in. It's kind of strange, but it is a discrimination problem. We know that in just the normal world that older people do get discriminated against somewhat. So, that's the biggest thing is like trying to get these relationships. Mm-hmm. So for last year at the state fair, I met the most wonderful man. He owns Colas, Justin, and we're brothers now. He cares about us. We've really educated them into the sun-grown cannabis, and now Colas has really reached out and want to start supporting small cannabis farms. So that right there was just the biggest change, having somebody in the business that mainly selling indoor, and now we start to change their minds. The kids that work there now my products are in there. They've tried my products, just like the old days. Once you try my products, you will absolutely love them, and you know that you're buying and supporting from a small family. And one thing with anybody that I know that buys my products, I give them my cards, and I'm open to any information you folks need about growing it, smoking it, what farms are sustainable to support. Reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram. My phone number's on my card. Come by my booth. And I love talking about cannabis. We don't have a social life at all on the farm. So I can sit up here all day and just talk to I feel like I'm with my people here in Sacramento, by the way. I love the people of Sacramento. A lot of you folks come up to Fort Bragg. I'm fishing there all the time. I hang with these people. Sacramento folks are like country folks. Mm-hmm. This ain't city folks that live here.
Yeah.
So I really, really love you people in Sacramento. And I really, thank you so much for supporting all small farms. And thank you so much for supporting Mendocino Family Farm.
Thank you for that, Phil. Sorry, Melissa, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, being here and talking to everybody and people wanting to hear our story has been really awesome. And just getting the praise that we have been getting on my dad's flower, it's so justifying. He's worked so hard, and I see him work so hard every day, and he's so passionate. And then to get the praise to see that, it just melts my heart, because it's so, he worked so hard for that, and I'm just so proud.
Absolutely. Long time coming and well deserved.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the future. You know, Melissa, you are going to be graduating how long till you get your master's from Oregon State in wildlife conservation?
It'll be winter of 2025, so I got a year and a little bit.
And then, so what are your plans? What are you thinking after?
Yeah, me and my sister have been discussing taking over this legend and being a part of the farm a little bit more and seeing what we could provide with our new skill set. My sister is really into native plants and pollinators, so how we can incorporate that into the farm and just continuing this legacy.
That's beautiful. And Phil, how does that make you and Sue feel hearing that?
We are so proud of these kids. You know, we raised our kids with a bunch of our friends. We all had kids all together, and to see how all the families, how their kids have, raising their kids in Lake Tahoe and seeing how they are, and comparing my kids the way those kids, and it's head shaking because, for one, I came from a really broken up family with no family values at all. So if I had to learn family values, when I had my own kids. And so when you come from a really broken up family like that, I think it's like your goal in life is to raise the best possible citizens. And for them to go through the schooling, the type of schooling that they're doing is probably because they're raised on a cannabis farm.
Absolutely.
And it really influenced them to enjoy life and enjoy the wildlife and the bugs and every little. These guys, they come and like, Dad, you cut your finger, we can go out and we can pick this and rub it on there and it will heal a lot fast. And then the mushrooms, these guys know every mushroom and fungus that's on our property. It's
maybe a new line,
amazing.
A new line coming.
Yeah.
In 2025.
Yeah, it's there's so much opportunity, for us in this world now. So I think all of us need to really kind of think about like where we're buying our food from, the same way that we try to think about where we get our cannabis. And if we all can like buy your food and eat food that's been raised and grown within a 50, 100-mile radius instead of buying food from these stores that sell, sure, it's at a healthy store, but it's from another country, like we need to start thinking about being more sustainable. What can we grow in our backyard? If we have no backyard, what can we grow on the roof? Any little space you can grow food, plant food, if like a cannabis plant, just the main thing I'd really like to teach people is like us as humans watching our planet go downhill, we all need to be more sustainable.
Absolutely. So Phil, would you ever consider running for any local office? I know you were talking about some of your frustration the other day with how things are being run, and
they would never. I'd probably get a lot of votes, but the county government would hate me because I say what I feel.
Yeah.
And in politics, you can't do that. It doesn't work. I've already been through it with the county. We've sued the county of Mendocino for other reasons that were just environmental damage that they were doing to the river. So I've already been through the politicians. The city council and them, they shake their head when they see me coming into the supervisors. They just like, oh boy, he's here. Look out, So no, I don't think I'm that kind of guy, but I am the guy to let's raise some hell.
Yeah, so the bigger our brand can get, the more we can be a platform for that kind of stuff and kind of speak through it in that way instead of going through politics. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. So Phil, do you ever see a time when you think, you and Sue might be able to sit down and chill a little bit at the farm and let the girls take over, or do you feel like you're going to just keep working until you can't anymore?
Well, I think you just stay in shape when you work, so I'm always going to be doing some. But her older sister, Paula, is engaged. Yay, she's 31. Yay, we might have a grandchild. But they're both coming. And her new husband, he's so educated in plants and wildlife, and the same, everything the same. And so she's going to graduate in June.
Amazing.
So we're hoping, and now we don't really start planting until late June. We used to start in February. And with the way that the market is and everything, we really try to cut down on any overhead that possible. So I've got it down to where I don't need, to start seeds per se right now. We can buy clones, have a good relationship with a Humboldt nursery. So I can, right now, if the market's so picky and the people are used to seeing the types of strains that are on the market, the names, that I can go out late June, start a crop, pick it in October.
Wow.
With seeds, you really need to start in February so you can get the males out before May. So it's just a lot more time processed, and it's a much funner process, quite frankly. So Sue and I will be able to hopefully next summer start doing a little traveling, with the technology we have.
I was going to ask.
I could be anywhere in the world, and they're so educated in plants and farming. Her degree is in sustainable farming, so I feel like it's going to transition very easily.
Where's the first place you want to go travel-wise?
Well, I really, really love Mexico. Some of the most beautiful areas in all around the world that I've been is in Baja, Mexico.
Beautiful.
So the first, I want to go down to back to Mexico and see my friends. It's been 3 years since we've gone down there, since the industry really dropped and we've really had no money for vacations. I haven't been down there, and man, I just really miss the culture. I think the Mexican culture is one of the best in the world. The family values are still like how it was in the 60s. There was a lot of family values in the U.S. So when I go back down there, I see just the family values down there, and I feel like I fit right in. So I want to go there first.
Nice.
But then I really want to take my wife to Ireland, that's where her genetics come from, Ireland. So, and she's been really looking up all her genes, how we can nowadays. And so I'd really like to take her to Europe and Ireland. And that's a goal before we get too old.
Yeah.
Since we're going to want to come back when the babies start coming out.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean? I love kids. I can't wait for some babies. So, anyway.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Well, I think we have a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, any cultivation questions, any questions for Phil and Melissa about what it's like being on their family farm. Otherwise, I think if you guys have anything else that you want to add, I know, so they're going to be sitting over and then their booth over there with a lovely green tablecloth. Feel free to wander over and talk to them one-on-one. They're both a wealth of knowledge and kindness. And thank you both so much for joining us. And if you have any final thoughts, we can close on out.
Well, all I can say is, once again, support small family farms. You're going to get the best, cleanest cannabis, and those people will always answer your questions for anything that you need. That's one thing a corporate company will never do. They're never going to give you a call and say, hey, how'd you like it? What can I do? What do you like? Do you like different strains? What would you like to see? I'm here for you. I love it. And I love Sacramento. Thank you very much. And go to Cola's and buy Mendocino Family Farms cannabis. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you, Caitlin and James, for giving us this opportunity to talk to the public after keeping this a secret for so long. It feels really good to be able to share our story. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here.
I love you, James.
All right.
I love
Thank
you,
you,
Caitlin.
everybody. I love you too. Thank you.